Hi friends, Chris here. I received an email the other day by a friend, Abdullah. Not actually a friend in real life, but an internet person who's reached out to me, watched some of these videos, had a request to discuss kind of was feeling a bit like imposter syndrome in terms of feeling low, feeling like things have been tough, career wasn't feeling right. It's not that he's just not feeling confident and trying to figure out how to overcome those things. Like he's not feeling like he's going to succeed, and he's scared, he's trying to get through this. And I want to share with y'all the answer I shared with him, since, of course, I think this is a situation a lot of us find ourselves in. Whether or not it's necessarily imposter syndrome, the word gets used in a lot of different ways. I clarify that only partly because sometimes it means that, it's a specific case where somebody, no matter how much recognition, acknowledgement that they get, they feel like they can't internalize that. And so we'll be talking a bit about that. We'll talk about more generally, though, why we might not feel like we're going to succeed or ways to frame that problem. Now, because I did write him back an email, you'll see me glancing at sort of below the camera at the email every now and then, making sure I'm catching all the high points. I'll probably edit out some of those transitions, but for the most part, yeah, I'm working from a script in this case in a way I don't usually. So one of the first things I acknowledge is that it is a little bit tricky to provide advice in a situation where you don't know someone's particulars, where you don't know their personal background, you don't know their history, you don't know their current values, you don't know their personal goals for the future. And I clarified this because there's we can try to hit some generalities, we can try to hit some high levels, but unless you have an engaged, real deep understanding with somebody, like the kind of basis that we get from, in some cases, paying a therapist or paying a coach or in an educational framework, it's difficult to give targeted advice of the kind that's really high value. And so I just want to start with that, which is to say, I can offer some generalities, might take some adaptation, pick and choose what works for you, obviously. First thing I want to point out is that it is helpful to, if you don't already have some of this stuff, and maybe you do, just got to arrange it, but you want to find ways to give yourself undeniable evidence of what you've done and that you're doing things. That if you are not finishing projects, well, it's going to help you to finish projects. And, like I often point out in a lot of my videos, that can mean scoping down. That might mean that the way you get to 100% is that you redefine what 100% means for this project. You cut out some stuff that you initially intended, and then just being able to put more things behind you. Because each one of those things you put behind you is like a rung of a ladder that you can then use to see in your past how high you've gone. That you've made progress, that you're able to learn from hindsight. And that's going to come from giving yourself evidence. And that evidence can take other forms. That evidence can take applying for and getting into programs that are related to what you do. That evidence can include putting yourself out there by submitting your stuff to competitions. And this is something where sometimes people might feel like, I never win anything. And the second question is, have you submitted your work for consideration to things? Because if you haven't, you're not going to win stuff you're not submitting it to. You're not going to get, in most cases, all but the most extreme lightning strike scenarios, you're not going to get press if you didn't reach out to press, etc. So, are you doing things to give yourself some evidence to build on? And in some cases, you have. You've done some things, in which case it really helps, I find, to get together a portfolio of what you've done so far. And I say portfolio, but it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be specially designed. A template off something like HTML5 Up or Start Bootstrap, those free templates, rearrange the graphics elements, replace the pictures. Heck, public domain images off Pexels, which are high quality photos, free stuff. I'm obviously not connected, no affiliation, whatever. That's a place I might do that, just to get some basic photos, to fill out some stuff, personalize the text, feature screenshots of your projects. Whatever you've done so far, taking stock of that, figuring out how to tell your story, that portfolio is as important to make a case to yourself about what you've done and where you've gone and what you've accomplished, as it is to make a case to a recruiter, a potential collaborator, or anybody else, or your parents for that matter. And so that portfolio can, like I said, be a valuable exercise just for kind of figuring out how you frame your own story. And if you're early enough in your experience, you don't have a whole lot to put in there yet, even still, starting down that pathway can be a really constructive way to start thinking about, what story do you want to be able to tell? What do you want to put in there that's not there yet? And that can really help clarify your direction about what are the next steps in your path, so you can build the portfolio you want to have that you're going to be proud of. That's going to reflect well on the things you can do. Now, I also mentioned this too about, maybe will or won't it impress the parents, as regardless of your age, their, opinions of us in many cases matter, and that's a valid, perfectly fine thing. But what I will stress is that it's incredibly important to find or create a community, a group of peers, of people who are about your level and interested in this thing that you do, that share your passion for it and are at, like I say, a similar level. It's really difficult to gauge ourselves relative to people around us who just don't care. Our neighbors, our classmates, maybe our significant others, other family members, classmates who study other things. And it's not a fault of their sake. It's not a problem with them as people, but it makes it really hard for us to baseline off. We don't see our progress because we still know more than we did before. Likewise, it's equally hard to base ourselves off of the enormous success stories, the rare, the 1% of 1% of things that, top level, the top 5 names that come to mind, the top 5 examples that come to mind, the highest profile successes. They've been doing it for a long time. There's a lot of luck involved, a lot of privilege involved, not a fair comparison benchmark. When you can find or create a set of peers, you can pace yourselves off one another. You can learn from their experiences in a much more relevant way. You can connect and work through things together without it being a situation where someone just knows the answer and you do or don't get it from them. And this is incredibly valuable for learning. It's one of the key values of traditionally educational institutions. It's the value of a 10th grade and a freshman year, and those kind of divisions, upperclassmen, keep people kind of in roughly that strata of their experience level in a way that helps them learn. Now, this is something that in a modern context, there's a lot of different ways to benefit from that without having necessarily be a part of a traditional institution, right? I mean, it's obviously one version of what I do, and not to give it too much of a plug, Game Keto Club is a version of this for people who are learning game development and somewhere in their first several team projects that they're working on. And we've found a way to provide that structure in a way that has some of the same benefits without some of the same lectures and the same assignments and stuff that go with a university or institution. Also, even just meetup groups in your area. If you happen to be near a big city hub, can be a great opportunity in those areas to find other people who have, like I say, shared interest in the kind of, I don't know if it's technology, I don't know if it's writing, whatever the field is you're interested in doing. It's something where finding people who are working on that too, maybe going to workshops, right? Those sort of things, night classes can help you find people to become your peer group. That's going to help enormously. I'll also say that if you don't yet have those kind of people in your life, to start seeing that as part of the task itself, in order to be a good writer, in order to do the activity of programming, it's going to really rely on, over the span of your career, meeting people who do it, learning how to communicate with people who do it, making connections with people who do it. You'll learn faster from each other's experiences. You will often find connections relevant to each other through each other. That's got to be a part of making it work. And that's also going to be one more pillar, one more rung, one more brick, however metaphor we want to use, for evidence to yourself that you are making progress, that you have a direction, that you've got a shot at this, some advantages over people who aren't making those kind of connections, aren't going out of their way to go to events, conferences, whatever they can do to find people at their level. Now, one of the questions that came up was about, felt like, wasn't going to succeed, worried it wasn't going to succeed. And my worry there is that the word succeed can seem very black and white, can seem very binary, can seem very do I or don't I succeed. And it's never like that. That's not how that works. Success is an incredibly rich and varied sort of up to us. It's a subjective call. It's not even like there's a linear scale of 0 to 1, 100% success or 0% success. It scatters in all different directions. There's success by critics, success by sales, success by traffic, success by, discussion, by how many memes it spawns, by recognizability. And some of these also are things where, like, you may find that oftentimes what happens is someone shoots for one kind of success and finds another along the way. And you got to learn, like, that's part of the process. That you wouldn't hit any of the kinds of success if you didn't aim for one of them and push for it. It's that motion that allows us to discover those opportunities. And so this is something where the other thing that happens is people will, and I happened to me early in my career, hit the success metric they thought they were aiming for, get there, and then kind of realize either A, now what, or this isn't so great. This isn't what I actually want. This isn't speaking to me. This isn't going to last. And suddenly you start scrambling and realizing there's so many other kinds of success, different kinds to aim for. And sometimes I've also had it happen to me where you find some kind of success and then realize you super don't want that kind. Like, you kind of want to turn off that spigot. You kind of want to turn away from whatever compromises that went with that, whatever challenges that went with that, whatever obligations or time pressures or stress came with certain kinds of success. And so it becomes a matter of exploring your values, it becomes a matter of deciding what types of success you're aiming for specifically. That's going to help move you in a direction. But then accepting, again, there's going to be some adaptation, there's going to be some evolution, there's going to be degrees of it, there's going to be little side trails of different kinds of success. And part of where this is also valuable is for two more reasons. One is that part of what's probably already happened is that you've actually been successful already. But as soon as you did it, you forgot about it. You disregarded it. You for example, depending on what your path is, what your career is, what your way of going about it is. For some people might be, they really wanted to get into a school to study this thing. And they got into that school. And then they really wanted to ace that test. And they got a decent grade on the test. They really wanted to finish the school, get a degree. And they got a degree in the thing they wanted to do. Those are like 3 examples that were at some point goals they had that they did. They succeeded at. But a lot of people then do those and then feel like they haven't succeeded yet because they just keep moving the marker. Now, moving the marker is important. That's how you grow. That's how you keep moving forward. But if you're not conscious of this going on, of this effect, then as soon as, no matter where you get the marker, you keep scooting ahead of yourself, you just get frustrated and exhausted because you're going to stop moving towards the thing you can never hit. You got to give yourself some credit. Again, so we go back to this, like, kind of telling your story in a simple portfolio. Nothing fancy. Telling your story to yourself is already helpful to take stock on what you've done so far. And it might not always be traditional education and degrees and programs, right? It could be having released projects. It could be having finished books. It could be having written fan fiction. It could be have gotten a certain number of likes, a certain number of views. It could be amount of videos you've produced. It could be any kind of metric that helps you realize that was a goal at some point. You've crossed that threshold. And again, this becomes something we can build upon, give ourselves some evidence of, yeah, I can be trusted with this task. Okay, I mean, this is something where another version of that, like I said, there's 2 things about that. The other one is to realize then that you can very much bisect, to use a little geometry word, you can midpoint, you can binary search, to use a comp sci term, you can insert success metrics between you and the direction you want to go in. And this is incredibly important to just keep your head on straight and not get overwhelmed. Right? I mean, so if someone wants to become a Hollywood A-lister celebrity and meet a lot of Uber drivers, whoever, like, that's why they're here. That's why they're hustling. That's the life that they choose to live. And no judgment there. Obviously, for a lot of people, odds may not work in their favor. It's tough, but no one makes it if they're not trying to. Well, okay, trying to shoot straight for that from anything else is going to be tough. What they got to do is decide that there's success that's in that direction, but closer to where they're at. To use, I think it might have been a Steven Johnson term, the adjacent possible, right? How can we get from here towards that? Okay, well, so first it might be my success is, can I get myself to sign up for an improv class? Can I get myself to go to an acting workshop? Can I get myself to find 5 books about the subject and read them? And if I can do that, well, okay, well, now I've succeeded at that. And now the second question becomes, okay, what's success from there? Can I become a part of the show that we sell tickets to as part of the improv group? Can I get myself to transfer to from the, I don't know, B group to A group? I think I'm going outside my domain. I don't know acting enough to speak to this example in rich detail, but you get the idea of, like, at each stage, it's, okay, what's my next goal that if I can succeed at, inches me closer to it? Halfway there, 1/4 there, 5% there, the direction of it. And that's the way we can start seeing our successes and making it a little less scary, because it suddenly doesn't become, I gotta eat this whole whale. It becomes one bite at a time. It becomes one piece at a time. And suddenly it becomes manageable by giving yourself those smaller things, realizing those are success. Those are along the way. And then I think lastly, another thing I want to make sure I address about this, let me skim about, that was definitely the last point, is to emphasize that this does not ever go away. This sense that you don't know enough, this sense that you have more to learn, the sense that other people know things that you don't know, that never goes away. The only people really, really confident that they know all the answers and that they have, and they're experts at it and they're really good at it, are incredibly naive, new to it, and may never get better. It's actually a good sign that you see things they don't. That's where you have depth to grow. Any good artist, any good musician, any good business person, any good engineer sees the ugly flaws, sees the upsetting imperfections, sees the stuff that they're a little ashamed of. They got to get over it, because they're always going to see those flaws. And it's that eye for those imperfections. It's that attention to detail. It's that ability to observe and notice and care about how it could or should be better that helps differentiate their results from everybody else's. And again, that never stops going away. The more you learn, the more you realize how deep all these fields go and how many different directions and how many other experts there are. And to go back to the topic from the video the other day, you start to realize that it's not that other people necessarily know more than you, they know different than you. It's also why you got to listen to everybody, because they know something you don't, even if you know more about something else. But it doesn't go away. It becomes a lifelong career skill to be an expert in anything, to not expect that to go away, to not hold your breath until you suddenly feel like a champion at it and suddenly feel acknowledged and proud and like, you know all there is to know, because if that's what you're doing, if you're doing something you can be the know everything about, you picked a pretty narrow, small field. For one, not a lot of room to grow. And yeah, I mean, for the rest of your career, I know people that are. I mean, a few years ago, I was in an article interviewed about we had a panel about imposter syndrome and Indiecade, and about people who, by all evidence, had done some things but were still struggling with it. And I was a part of that group. I was a part of the people in that article, in part because no matter what I did, I started to realize I still felt like there were a lot of things I wasn't doing well. But that doesn't go away. You got to learn to cope with that. You got to learn to navigate that. You got to learn to accept that that's part of the job. That's part of the gig. That's part of the life that you choose. And like I said, I know people who are much later in their careers than I am. Been around 20, 30 plus years in what they do. And they've maybe come to healthy terms with it, right? They accept that this is a feeling that they have. It doesn't go away. If you want it to go away, might be in the wrong field, whatever the field is. But you pick a different field, you're going to feel that same feeling in that field, because you're going to realize the depth of it. The more time you spend there, the more infinite learning there is. And in a way, that can be exciting. That can be invigorating, that there's always more people to learn from, that there's always more things to learn about it, that there's so much more out there than what you've had the experience of so far. That can be wide open, really exciting, as long as you approach it from that attitude and not one of feeling overwhelmed. Because the other part of this is to accept and realize, because you can't learn all of it, because you can't be the expert in every nick and cranny of it, because it's not like here's a 200-page book, I read every single page, right? That's not how music or programming or writing or whatever, or business work. That's not how they work. It's not how any real field of adult life is going to function. Then instead what you come to realize is, okay, you can kind of put down a flag and make an area as best your niche as you can. Or if you decide to be a generalist and sort of a spanner between people with different expertise, you can do that too. But you can kind of decide and choose and set your own boundaries, and then fill up as strong as you can within your boundaries, however dense or however spread you choose to make them. You can claim that territory, make it yours, and then find places, find teams, find situations, find projects that need your specific niche, your specific scope, your specific scale, the things you do well. And that's as much a success as anybody can look for, right? That's it. So anyway, thanks so much for the question, Abdullah. I appreciated it. Hopefully it's been helpful today. I think I threw in a few other little points here in the live chat and the video chat than I had in the email. But I want to thank you again for the engaging question. And yeah, best wishes out there in your next steps for your journey. Bye, y'all. Have a great day.